Today on the Matt Walsh Show, in a move that should surprise no one, Caitlin Clark has officially bent the knee to the left-wing racial narrative. Daniel Penny gives his first interview after his acquittal and proves again that he is a true American hero. Donald Trump seems to float the idea of annexing Canada. Might not be the worst idea in the world. And just in time for Christmas, I have some very important advice before you go shopping for the dads in your life. All of that and more today on the Matt Walsh Show. Are you feeling the stress about giving your family a memorable holiday? You're not alone. Prices remain higher than ever, and a lot of us are maxing out our credit cards. Now's the perfect time to take control of your finances and pay off that debt. If you're a homeowner, American Financing can help you unlock the equity in your home and start saving. Their customers save $800 a month on average. Just imagine what that could mean for your family. Plus, if you act now, you could even delay 2 mortgage payments, giving you extra cash for the season. Wouldn't it be nice to start off the new year without that debt and those monthly minimum payments? Costs nothing to find out how much you can save. The holidays will be here before you know it, so call one of their salary-based mortgage consultants today. American Financing. Call now 866-569-4711. That's 866-569-4711. Or you can visit americanfinancing.net/Walsh. NMLS 182334, NMLS Consumer Access. Do it now before the next economic crisis hit. NMLS 182334, NMLS consumeraccess.org. Being a husband, father, and host of my own show means that life never slows down. Now imagine trying to eat 31 different fruits and vegetables every day in the midst of your busy life. Sounds miserable, sounds time-consuming, but with Balance of Nature fruits and veggies, there's never been a more convenient dietary supplement to ensure you get a wide variety of fruits and vegetables every day with 31 different whole fruit and vegetable ingredients. Balance of Nature takes fruits and vegetables, they freeze-dry them, turn them into a powder, and then put them into a capsule. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, and your body knows what to do with them. It's that simple. Go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Walsh for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Walsh. Here's a little case study that they probably won't be teaching anytime soon in business school, even though it's pretty eye-opening. This was by far the best year the WNBA has ever had. They set an all-time record for total television viewers at 54 million. They set an all-time record for the number of telecasts that reached at least 1 million viewers. They had their highest total attendance in more than 2 decades, up roughly 50% from last year. The All-Star Game recorded its most fan votes in history at 10 million votes, more than a 500% increase from last year. The Indiana Fever, the team Caitlin Clark plays for, set an all-time single-season record for attendance by a WNBA team. The league saw a 350% year-over-year growth in subscriptions to their paid streaming service. The league had more social media engagement, more sellout crowds, more news coverage, more merchandise sales than ever before. This was the kind of season that WNBA executives never imagined was even possible. Now, given all these facts, how much money do you think the WNBA made this year? How much cash did this historic season actually bring in? What kind of profit were they able to reap from all of this success? You might remember that earlier in this year, there were some estimates that maybe things weren't looking all that great. And it turns out that now that the final numbers are in, those estimates were very accurate. In total, according to New York Post, the WNBA lost $40 million this year in its best year on record. They exceeded pretty much every metric in the book, and they managed to earn negative $40 million. This is a business that has never been profitable in its history, and it's now abundantly clear that nothing can ever change that. I mean, it is a fatally flawed concept because the overwhelming majority of Americans have no interest in watching women play basketball. Even when record numbers of Americans are interested, it's still not that many. And that's one of the many reasons it was illuminating to read Caitlin Clark's recent front page article in Time magazine, which is something that apparently still exists, and which just named Clark their Athlete of the Year. And this is an interview that includes probably the single biggest backhanded compliment that's ever been printed in the history of backhanded compliments. And at the same time, It includes Caitlin Clark's official capitulation to the left's anti-white racial narrative, which everyone should have seen coming a long time ago. But here's the part that I'm talking about, straight from Time magazine. It says this, quote, Clark is cognizant of the racial underpinnings of her stardom. I want to say I've earned every single thing, but as a white person, there is privilege, says Clark. A lot of those players in the league that have been really good have been black players. This league has kind of been built on them. The more we can appreciate that, highlight that, talk about that, and then continue to have brands and companies invest in those players that have made this league incredible, I think it's very important. I have to continue to try to change that. The more we can elevate black women, that's going to be a beautiful thing. Okay, two things are happening here. First of all, Clark is crediting black women for building the WNBA. Without black women, she says, there is no WNBA, and she apparently means that as a kind of a compliment, even though in practical terms, it's a bit like praising Bernie Madoff for managing a successful asset management firm, or Elizabeth Holmes for founding Theranos, or Kenneth Lay for running Enron. Normally, when someone creates a business that serves no purpose other than to light people's money on fire, it's not something you praise them for. Okay, so if black women built the WNBA, they built the least successful professional sports league ever. And also, it's not even true, by the way. The WNBA was built and is still maintained by the NBA. So men built the WNBA. Without men, the WNBA would not exist. But Caitlin Clark is coming out and crediting black women for their role in establishing a league that nobody watches. She says that black women in particular deserve to be elevated, and it's clear why she's saying this. She's saying this because she is, I'm sorry to say, a coward. To protect her endorsement deals and her good status at the WNBA, Clark has decided to affirm the single most destructive lie of the generation, which is that white people are inherently indebted to black people because of their skin color, and that black people solely on account of their skin color deserve special treatment at the expense of whites. That's what she just came out and endorsed. Now, there's no need to explain in any detail how much damage this ideology has caused this country over the past decade. It's led to grave injustices in every single area of life for people of every race and both genders. But more importantly than that, of course, it's wrong as a matter of principle. And most Americans realize it's wrong. That's a big part of the reason Kamala Harris was just defeated. It's why DEI departments are being gutted all over the country, from college campuses to Fortune 500 companies. But Clark is clinging to this ideology, and she's not the only one doing it. And we'll have more on that in a moment. But to be clear, it's not surprising that Clark would come out and say this and bend the knee. A lot of conservatives are kind of acting shocked by this Time magazine profile, but you should not be shocked by, did you actually think she wouldn't bend the knee to this stuff? Of course she did. Of course she did. And there were signs. Just a few months ago on SNL, for example, Clark went out of her way in the middle of an alleged comedy segment to credit a series of black women for her success. Watch.
Good luck in the WNBA. I hope you have a great first season.
Thanks. I'm sure it will be a big first step for me. But it's just one step for the WNBA. Thanks to all the great players like Cheryl Swoops, Lisa Leslie, Cynthia Cooper, the great Dawn Staley, and my basketball hero, Maya Moore. These are the women that kicked down the door so I could walk inside. So I want to thank them tonight for laying the foundation. And Michael, since you're such a big fan, I brought you a souvenir. It's an apron signed by me.
Just another hilarious SNL bit there. Great, funny stuff. Now, she doesn't name a single white player, and that's not because there haven't been good white players in the WNBA, at least by the standards of the WNBA. According to the internet, which I'm relying on for all of my information about the WNBA, somebody named Sue Bird was pretty good, for example. She played for something called the Seattle Storm, which exists. And Sue Bird became the first player in the history of the WNBA to win titles in 3 different decades. One of the greatest female point guards of all time, apparently. So why isn't Sue Bird getting credit for kicking down the doors so that Caitlin Clark could walk through them? Now, of course, maybe the biggest sign that Clark would start openly apologizing for being white was that she got assaulted all season long and never seemed to have a big issue with it. And I'm talking about flagrant attacks on the court where she was knocked over, jabbed in the eye, etc. All of these attacks were committed by black players, as far as I can tell, and these players never really even expressed remorse. In fact, in some cases, they taunted Caitlin Clark afterwards. So here's just a small selection of this sort of treatment.
following the pass to Boston. Clark in pain after she caught that fingertip in the eye or right around it from Carrington with no whistle. Now, there's nothing Indiana can challenge here because no call on the floor was made.
One-on-one, Sammy Whitcomb with 8 seconds left. Goes around to Gumake, drives baseline, and shot rejected by Izzy McMagor. Second opportunity is up and in by Nalissa Smith. Very entertaining first half about Seattle, and all of a sudden, we're pretty close. This has been as close as it's been all second quarter long, 44.
New reaction after this controversial foul on Caitlin Clark.
Unnecessary.
Clark's Indiana Fever taking on the Chicago Sky on Saturday. The Sky's Kennedy Carter hitting a shot, then heading over to Clark and shoulder checking her. The refs called it a common foul, but the league yesterday upgraded the call to a flagrant foul.
Trust Arena, the Fever really stretched out this one in the second half as we look at Diamond DeShields and Caitlin Clark.
Okay, so just that kind of stuff all season long. And if the clips demonstrate anything, it's that, Caitlin Clark doesn't seem to have privilege in this league, although she says she's privileged. As a white woman in the WNBA, she seems to have anything but privilege, and she knows this. She knows it better than anyone. Yet she claims that she has privilege, even after suffering through a season where she was repeatedly physically assaulted because of her race. That's the privilege of being white in the WNBA. The reason she's getting attention, on the other hand, is not that she's white, it's that she's good by league standards. Despite getting physically attacked all the time, she set WNBA records for most points by a rookie, most assists, becoming the fastest player to record 300 points, and so on. The reason she's reviled and abused, on the other hand, is purely because of her race. I mean, that's the only reason that anyone wouldn't like her, that her teammates or competitors wouldn't like her. In fact, this Time magazine profile makes that very clear. They quote her teammate, a woman with a name I can't pronounce, as saying, quote, "In a sport dominated by Black/African-American players, white America has rallied around Caitlin Clark. The support looks mostly amazing, sometimes fanatical and territorial, sometimes racist. It seems that the great white hope syndrome is at play again." That's quite a teammate. In other words, she's saying white people are only supporting Caitlin Clark because they want to see a white person dominate a sport that's mostly played by black women. That's supposedly the only reason some white people are now actually watching the sport and going to the games. They're such committed white supremacists that they're willing to subject themselves to hours of WNBA games just to stick it to black women, apparently. This is the kind of thing that makes it very obvious the WNBA is never going to have another decent season ever again. Because the moment they get some new fans, they immediately smear their new fans as racist. And a lot of these players are doing it. The Time magazine piece also contains this insight from another player, Asia Wilson is her name, quote, "It doesn't matter what we all do as black women, we're still going to be swept underneath the rug. That's why it boils my blood when people say it's not about race, because it is." This has become part of the mythology in women's basketball for a long time. They seem to have convinced themselves that nobody watches their games because of racism. That was the message that a UConn player named Paige Buchers delivered at the ESPYs a few years ago at the height of the BLM mania. Watch.
As a white woman who leads a black-led sport and celebrated here, I want to show a light on black women. They don't get the media coverage that they deserve. They've given so much to this sport and the community and society as a whole, and their value is undeniable. And in the WNBA, last season, the postseason awards, 80% of the winners were black, but they got half the amount of coverage as the white athletes. So I think it's time for change. Sports media holds the key to storylines. Sports media and sponsors tell us who is valuable, and you have told the world that I matter today, and everyone who voted, thank you. But I think we should use this power together to also celebrate black women.
So it's the same script that Caitlin Clark is reading 3 years later, as if nothing's changed. And hopefully I don't need to explain the problem here. To claim that, people don't care about black basketball players or that black basketball players are getting swept under the rug is to ignore the fact that out of the 100 most popular and wealthiest and most praised and adored basketball players of all time, maybe like 10 of them are white, maybe. Obviously, the vast, vast majority of the greatest and most visible and most widely loved and admired basketball players of all time are black. I mean, the most marketable and marketed athlete in history in any sport is a black guy named Michael Jordan. Maybe you've heard of him. So this narrative wants us to pretend like none of that exists. But things have changed. Most people aren't willing to play, this game of pretend anymore. People are no longer willing to believe that there's a vast conspiracy to ignore the many accomplishments of black women in the WNBA. Now people are more likely to believe the truth, which is that people are ignoring the WNBA because it's just not a great product and people aren't interested in it. If you don't believe that, consider the overwhelmingly negative response to a message that was posted yesterday by outgoing Congressman Jamal Bowman. Now, Bowman, of course, is best known for pulling a fire alarm and lying about it. Here's what he wrote on X, totally unprompted. Quote, "Dear white people, I don't know why I feel the need to keep talking to you. I don't know why part of me still has hope for you and for us. Some of you are too far gone, but maybe enough of you aren't and will join us in a fight to end white supremacy." Now, goes without saying, like, you cannot imagine this guy's still a congressman at the moment. Now we can see why he's not going to be one anymore, but you just cannot imagine a white congressman posting a note on social media saying, "Dear black people, I don't know why I still bother talking to you people. Most of you are too far gone." Like, you can't, it would never happen. I mean, not in a million years would that happen. Bowman then followed up this open letter to white people by lying about the Rodney King trial and the Daniel Penny case, among others. In response, thousands of people pointed out to Jamal Bowman that he should probably move to Liberia if he hates white people so much. And putting it mildly, the reaction was overwhelmingly negative. And then Bowman responded with this, quote, "Wow, this has been so triggering for so many of you. Do you realize you're actually proving my point? If you're triggered by this, imagine how I must feel when black people are murdered consistently and there is no justice. Y'all can't handle a tweet. Fascinating." Now, back at the height of BLM, this series of posts probably would have been effective. There was an appetite for this type of low-effort race baiting. But there's no appetite for this stuff anymore, as the response on X demonstrates. But there are other members of Congress who will actually be returning next year who are just as committed to this anti-white orthodoxy, even though it's well past its expiration date. Several of them just came out and demanded that Joe Biden commute the sentences of everybody on death row on racial grounds. Watch.
Today, on Human Rights Day, we call on President Biden to do the right thing, to use his clemency authority to commute the death sentences of the 40 individuals on death row, to resentence them to a prison term, and to save lives. State-sanctioned murder is not justice. And the death penalty is a cruel, racist, and fundamentally flawed punishment that has no place in our society. It is deeply discriminatory and has disproportionately been weaponized against black, brown, and low-income families for far too long. It is long past time for President Biden to make good on his campaign promise to address the federal death penalty. With 40 days left in his presidency, we must move with urgency and ensure that history never repeats itself.
Now, the claim you just heard that federal death row disproportionately consists of black and brown people just isn't true. Black people commit something like 50% of the murders in this country, according to FBI data. But the federal death row is only about 38% black. It's 15% Hispanic and 45% white. So, if anything, death row is disproportionately affecting white people. That's what the numbers say. But nobody in their right mind thinks along these lines because everyone on death row obviously deserves to be there. These are criminals, almost always repeat offenders, who have been convicted of some of the most heinous crimes it's possible for a person to commit, including kidnapping and murdering 12-year-old girls, executing bank guards, shooting witnesses so they can't testify in court. It includes a police officer in New Orleans who conspired with a drug dealer to murder a woman who filed a police brutality complaint against him. It includes a mass shooter. It includes the Boston Marathon bomber. I mean, these are the kinds of people that Democrats have decided after their crushing defeat in November must be defended. I mean, Americans made it very clear that they're unhappy with the cost of living, with public safety, with illegal immigration. And Democrats have responded with Well, best we can do is commute the sentences of death row inmates. How about that? I mean, these inmates are the absolute dregs of society, but Democrats in Congress have decided to campaign on behalf of these murderers because some of them are black. Now, what this means is that despite the results of last month's election, the left is pushing ahead with the same racial narrative we've seen so many times before. They're completely oblivious to the fact that no one, except apparently Caitlin Clark, is receptive to this kind of demagoguery anymore, or very few people are. For her part, Caitlin Clark has endorsement deals to worry about. No one else really has any incentive to tolerate this stuff. And if there's a reason to be bullish right now about Republicans' prospects in future elections, it's that Democrats, whether they're in Congress or the WNBA, seem incapable of figuring this out. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. With Christmas around the corner, let me tell you about the one gift that will actually be worth giving this year. No cheap plastic junk that'll end up in a landfill by February. I'm talking about Cozy Earth, which has become my family's go-to for creating an actual sanctuary in our home. Look, after spending all day fighting the culture war and dealing with the insanity of modern society, you need somewhere to retreat and actually get some rest. That's why I personally love Cozy Earth's bamboo sheet set made from viscose from bamboo. These sheets are engineered to keep you several degrees cooler at night. And unlike most products today that seem designed to just fall apart, these are guaranteed for 10 years. My wife and I have also become huge fans of their pajama sets. When you're finally done dealing with the world for the day, there's nothing better than changing into something that's actually built for comfort and quality. So here's what you need to do. Visit cozyearth.com/Matt Walsh. Use my exclusive code Matt Walsh for 40% off to wrap your family in actual luxury this Christmas season. That's cozyearth.com/Matt Walsh. Use code Matt Walsh for 40% off. And when you get that post-purchase survey, make sure to let them know how you heard about it, and you heard about it on the Matt Walsh Show. All right, Daniel Penny was interviewed on Fox News yesterday. This is his first interview since being acquitted on Monday, and let's check out a brief clip of that.
I mean, I'm not a confrontational person. I don't really extend myself. I think this type of thing is very uncomfortable. All this attention and limelight is very uncomfortable. And I would prefer without it. I didn't want any type of attention or praise, and I still don't. Mm-hmm. The guilt I would have felt if someone did get hurt, if he did do what he was threatening to do, would never be able to live with myself. And I'll take 1 million court appearances and people calling me names and people hating me just to keep one of those people from getting hurt or killed.
So this is the first time we've heard from him throughout this whole ordeal. We hadn't even really heard his voice except for a few of the clips of the police interrogation. And now that we finally hear from him, it's exactly what, I expected. Pleasantly not surprised. He's humble, not interested in the attention, not interested in the fame, not really comfortable with all the praise. And why did he step up on the train that day? Simply because he wouldn't be able to live with himself if he didn't. And this is such a rare quality these days that it's almost shocking to see it. But just somebody doing the right thing only because it's the right thing. Not for praise or attention or anything, but just like it's the right thing and I'm going to do the right thing. This is what qualifies him as heroic. And personally, I hope he continues to be shy about the public attention and just moves to some friendly state like Florida or Tennessee and just gets back to normal life to the extent that that's possible. But that's what my hope would be for him. I know there are going to be conservatives who try to turn this guy into a public figure, into an activist, into a, public speaker. I'm sure he's already been invited to give speeches at a million different things. And, God forbid, he's got a podcast deal coming down. I mean, I hope that doesn't happen. And I mean, if that's what Daniel Penny decides he wants to do, then more power to him. That's great. But for his sake, I hope he's able to go off and just live a private life again. And that's one of the reasons why, even though I'm a huge Daniel Penny supporter, I haven't tried to reach out to him to do an interview or come on the podcast. And I don't think the podcast circuit is the best thing for him right now. That's just my opinion. I think back to someone like Kyle Rittenhouse, who, as you know, I also supported all the way through his whole ordeal. And but immediately after he was acquitted, he was on podcasts and giving speeches and making public appearances and basically ensuring that he would never be able to have anything like a normal life ever again. And I just that's usually not good. Like that's not for me to decide, obviously, but that's just my opinion. And especially for someone like this, he clearly just doesn't want the attention. He wants to live a normal life, and hopefully he's able to do that. Now, AOC had some thoughts on all of this. Let's listen to that.
Essentially said that he would do it again if necessary, if there was a present threat. What do you make of the comments?
Well, doesn't that, I just feel like that tells us everything. If we do not want violence on our subways, and the point of our justice system is a level of accountability to prevent a person who does not have remorse about taking another person's life. I mean, even people who have engaged in manslaughter or have taken a life accidentally express remorse. And so the fact that a person may express no remorse indicates that there's a risk that it may happen again. And if we do not want to unleash that level of violence, then we should exert a level of accountability to prevent that from happening again.
So AOC says that New Yorkers are less safe with Daniel Penny out there. He may strike again. He may strike again. That is, he may prevent another psychotic vagrant from killing people. That's what she's worried about. But the problem with this analysis is that if Penny does present that sort of risk, it means New Yorkers are more safe, not less, obviously. So she has this exactly backwards. New York is safer with people like Daniel Penny than without him. Though, honestly, I hope she gets her wish. Hopefully Penny has already left New York so that no more New Yorkers will be plagued by the presence of a heroic, humble, selfless man who steps up to do the right thing at great risk to himself. Because New Yorkers don't deserve Daniel Penny, honestly. I give the jury credit. They got it right. Took them a while. Like, it should not have taken 5 days to figure it out, but, they got it right. Fine. But also, let's be honest, New Yorkers did not show up en masse to support Daniel Penny. They really didn't. Maybe some of them did. I'm sure there were some supporters outside the courthouse and all of that, but there should have been an overwhelming outpouring of support in his community for him, and there wasn't. That's the fact of the matter. So, there are a lot of people giving the jury credit and saying, hey, and again, I give them credit too, but first of all, you can only give people so much credit for just doing what's obviously right. Like, I don't give you a lot of credit for not falsely convicting a man of a crime he didn't commit and sending him to prison for 10 years. That's just basic level human stuff that we expect of you. And so you did the right thing, but the alternative would have been hideously evil. So, great. Thanks for doing the right thing. Thanks for not being hideously evil, but still, it seems to me that he was not getting anywhere near the kind of support in his own community that he should have. And I brought this point up, throughout the trial, that you get all these BLM activists outside screaming, why aren't there more on Daniel Penny's side out there? And, you get a lot of excuses. And one thing I heard a lot is, well, conservatives have jobs and these leftist activists don't. And yeah, I know that's true. Another one is, well, people have jobs, they have lives, they don't want to, you're risking something if you show up and support Daniel Penny. Yeah, it is, I suppose, a risk, but at a certain point, like, if you're not willing to stand up at a certain point, like, we have to expect that of people. It kind of goes back to the Caitlin Clark thing, by the way. because there are plenty of conservatives I've seen that are kind of giving Caitlin Clark the benefit of the doubt and trying to be gracious and saying, well, listen, she has to bend the knee. She has to come out and do the whole sort of land acknowledgement thing in the WNBA. And she has to do that because she plays with these people. And it would be really hard for her to do anything but that. Yeah, but see, this is how we end up in a situation where the left-wing racial narrative seizes control of society. It's how you end up with, the trans agenda gaining all the power and prominence it does. You end up there because just normal people, not enough normal people, speak up against it. That's how you end up there. So we got to start expecting just a little bit of courage from people. And yeah, Caitlin Clark, a little bit of courage. I don't expect her to come out and say, there's an anti-white racism problem in the WNBA. It'd be great if she said that. She should say that, but I know she's not going to say that, and I don't even really expect that. But just don't bend the knee. Don't go out of your way in the other direction. Just don't do that. And if you're in New York and someone in your community who's stepped up to protect you is getting railroaded, then I expect you to put a little bit on the line. Find a way to schedule around it and just show up and support him at least once. Too many excuses. All right, DailyWire has this. President-elect Donald Trump referred to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as the governor of the great state of Canada in a Truth Social post on Monday. He said, here's the post. It was a pleasure to have dinner the other night with Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada. I look forward to seeing the governor again soon so we may continue our in-depth talks on tariffs and trade, the results of which will be truly spectacular for all. So this is very funny trolling by Trump, but I do think it should maybe not be trolling. I think this is worth thinking about. Do we annex Canada? I've heard the proposal for maybe we take Canada and Mexico. Maybe we can have both. For me, I'd say I'm not interested in Mexico. No thanks. Just wall it off and leave it alone. I'm not sure we gain much by conquering Mexico. Like, why would you want that? What about Mexico is appealing? But Canada, that's interesting. Sure, if you take Canada, then you have to unfortunately deal with all the Canadians. But the good news is that it's a huge country with only like 14 or 15 people living in it, I think, was the latest population estimate. Bigger than the United States in terms of the total land mass. A lot of it is basically frozen, a frozen wasteland, but still, it's worth thinking about. What would Canada even do if we decided to conquer it? Does Canada have a military? And their military is like 3 guys with slingshots on a toboggan. So you could probably pretty easily take it over. And, maybe you worry about the European countries being upset. But why would you worry about that? What are they going to do? Do they even have militaries? And even if they could do something about it, nobody would care that much because it's Canada. Everybody would just look over there and go, what's going on over there? Oh, you're conquering Canada? Okay. Whatever. It's Canada. And I like Canada, by the way, just to be clear. I don't like its culture or its politics or its government, but it's a beautiful country, which is why I'm saying we should consider maybe taking it. And by the way, the Canadians are all plagued by this colonial guilt, right? The land acknowledgement thing in Canada is huge. So they really would have no right. By their own logic, they have no right to the land anyways, so they can't really object if we come in and take it. By their logic, we're just stealing land from people who already stole it. So it's a little bit like stealing a car from a car thief. It's like, who's really the victim here? I mean, the victim is down the line somewhere, but the thief is not a victim. So, I don't know. Something to think about. We're just thinking about it, Canada. Relax. I mean, we're not saying we will conquer you. We're just saying we could. And maybe we should. And maybe we will. Here's an article that I found interesting. I don't know how you'll feel about it, but I thought it was interesting. It's from the Daily Mail. A study conducted by U.S. Army intelligence has suggested that reincarnation is real because consciousness never dies. Entitled Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process, the 29-page report was drafted by U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Wayne M. McDonnell in 1983 and declassified by the CIA in 2003. The research has resurfaced on social media, with Chicago-based comedian Sarah Holcomb summarizing the findings, saying, "We're pretty sure reincarnation is real." The report says consciousness is energy and it exists outside of our understanding of reality, and energy never dies. The mind-bending official Pentagon study was commissioned to better understand what its Army intel colleagues were doing, sending personnel to a small institute in Charlottesville, Virginia, that was working on the Gateway experience. The then secretive Gateway Project, based on McDowell's analysis, was a training system designed to bring enhanced strength, focus, and coherence to alter consciousness. Okay, so that's the report. I have no idea why the article is telling us what some random comedian thinks about all this, but the actual story is quite fascinating. Consciousness never dies, according to the study. Now, I don't buy the reincarnation angle here, but obviously, but it does go to show just how insufficient are these secular explanations for consciousness. Because secular mainstream science really has no explanation for consciousness. It can't say how consciousness came about or even what it is exactly. But its guess is that consciousness is somehow the byproduct of the brain's functioning. You know, it's a physical process. It's a physical product. It's like how fire produces smoke, basically. But the purely physical theory of consciousness has some major problems. I mean, for one thing, you're left with the kind of the fundamental problem of how a physical process could become aware of itself. And this is me nerding out now, and probably nobody cares anymore, but I'm just going to talk about it anyway. Because I find it very interesting. I don't know how you could not be interested in the phenomenon of consciousness and what exactly it is. And I think ultimately is what I'm getting at, that I think that when you talk about the proofs of God, and I think that there are many proofs that are quite compelling. This, to me, is the most compelling proof of all. Not often used in these like debates about the existence of God with atheists and so on. I rarely, and I watch a lot of these debates because I find them interesting, but I rarely hear anyone use this proof. But to me, it's the most compelling one. Because again, it's the mainstream secular science has no explanation for it. So, you know, if you want to say that some mindless physical process produces some other mindless physical thing, then fine. But how does a mindless physical process produce an awareness of itself? So how can a bunch of inanimate, mindless things combine together to form a mind? So, you know, put another way, the brain is made up of cells, of course, but if each individual cell does not have, you know, some degree of consciousness, then how can it all together have consciousness? How can the combination of material create a property that was never present in the smaller parts? You know, there's one attempt to solve that. You know, I guess the one sort of from a secular perspective, it's called panpsychism, and that's the idea that consciousness is a fundamental brute fact of the universe, and so every bit of matter has a certain amount of kind of latent consciousness. And so it's just, so their way of explaining it is like, why does consciousness exist? Well, just because it does. It's just part of reality. And so when you combine it together, you get more sophisticated consciousness. Now, of course, if that was true, then that would mean that like something like the sun is conscious because it's a combination of all these, of material that is itself conscious, which of course, you know, that's kind of wacky, but it's very wacky. It's not true, but it's their way of kind of getting around this problem. And the other big problem is that consciousness, if it's a blind physical process, you know, as mainstream secular science would say, that would mean that it's a product of evolution, but which is what they would say, right? You know, the kind of godless explanation of consciousness. Well, it's a product of evolution. Everything about us is a product of evolution, which is a blind process with no designer overseeing it, they would say. But, that doesn't make any sense either. Judged purely on like a Darwinian level, if you're just to take their premise, it makes no sense that consciousness would ever come about, because it really has no evolutionary advantage. Right? I mean, the only thing evolution, right, cares about is just the propagation of the species. That's the only objective of evolution. So, how does it help propagate the species to make us aware of ourselves, to have the kind of vivid sense of awareness that we all have, that's just unique and distinct for humans? As far as we know, no other creatures in the universe have. How does that help? Why would evolution be interested in creating something like that? What is the evolutionary advantage? And I don't see how there would be the one. So from the purely physical perspective, it just doesn't make any sense, and that leaves us with the idea that consciousness is something that transcends the physical. Consciousness is a function of the spirit, of the soul, which requires there to be something like a soul, which requires there to be a God. And so I've always found that to be an interesting explanation. Man, have you heard about Rose Sparks? This dual-action prescription merges the powerhouse ingredients found in generic Viagra and Cialis, sildenafil and tadalafil, into one formidable treatment. But it's not merely about the ingredients and the medication, it's how you're taking it. That's why Rose Sparks are designed to dissolve under your tongue. And that's huge because dissolvable treatments hit your bloodstream faster than old-school pills. Rose Sparks keeps you present with your partner instead of waiting for a pill to work. Rose Sparks leverages the benefits of sublingual administration, meaning the tablet dissolves under your tongue. This method allows for fast absorption directly into your bloodstream, bypassing the digestive system. The result, quicker onset of action, reducing the wait time typically associated with traditional pills. Plus, tadalafil, the active ingredient in Cialis, lasts in the system for up to 36 hours. So when the mood is right, you'll be ready without another dose. To get $15 off your first order and to find out if prescription Rose Sparks are right for you, connect with a provider at ro.co/Walsh. That's ro.co/Walsh for $15 off your first order. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Only available if prescribed after an online consultation with a provider. Right now, DailyWire Plus gift memberships are 40% off. That means this year you can save serious money while giving a full year of uncensored daily shows from the most trusted voices in conservative media with limited ads. Plus, groundbreaking investigative journalism, access to our entire entertainment catalog, including What is a Woman and the #1 documentary of the decade, Am I Racist? You get full access to Bent Key, our kids app, and so much more. Finish your Christmas shopping with one click. Go to dailywire.com right now and give the gift of DailyWire Plus. Now let's get to our daily cancellation. So I'm going to do a service today for our daily cancellation, as I do so often during this segment. Every daily cancellation is, in effect, a public service, and that will essentially and especially be the case today. Out of the kindness of my heart and an abundance of Christmas joy and generosity, I'm going to help anyone who is still trying to figure out what sort of gift to buy for any dad in their life for Christmas or any other gift-giving occasion. I'll also be helping out all the dads out there by hopefully rescuing them from the plague of bad gifts that we dads suffer from by the millions across the globe every year. It is the silent epidemic that nobody talks about, but today it ends. So we're going to run down a list of some of the most popular and common categories, really, of dad gifts. And I'll tell you which of these gifts are canceled. And these are gifts that you just simply should not give your dad or your husband, even if you've given him this kind of gift in the past and he claimed that he liked it. So we're always going to pretend that we like anything you give us. That doesn't mean we actually do. So let's go through some of these. And at the end, I'll also tell you which gifts you should buy. So I won't just leave you with the negative. We'll get to the constructive part of it. But as for the bad gifts, there are really three categories. Okay, these are bad gifts for a dad, but also very common. Bad gift category number one. Anything that qualifies as a gag gift. Okay. Now, dads have been the primary recipients of gag gifts since the beginning of time. The entire gag gift market is kept afloat by our wives and children buying this crap for us. Like, no one else gets the gag gifts as much as we do. Across the world, like $9 trillion are spent on gag gifts every year. I don't know if that's the exact number, but I'm sure it's something around there. And all that money is a waste. You're wasting money and our time on a thing that we will open and pretend to find vaguely amusing and never think about again. And there are a million examples of this sort of thing, but here's just one. This was apparently featured on Shark Tank at one point. It's a toilet timer, and Amazon tells me it's a funny gift for men. And there's like a million of these things. Funny gift for men. And the gag is that it's a timer that you keep on the toilet so that I guess you can keep track of how long it takes you to finish your business. I don't know. Now, what's the problem with this? It's the same problem with any gag gift. It's just not that funny. Like, why isn't it funny? Well, because the companies that make cheap novelties are not comedic masterminds. If you're a true comedy, genius, you're not working at the toilet timer company. You're not getting a job coming up with wacky slogans for mugs or T-shirts or ties. So the people producing this stuff aren't funny, and so we're not amused, which is why whenever your dad or your husband opens a gag gift, you've probably noticed he always has the same reaction. He goes like, yeah, that's a good one. And then you have to spend the next 5 minutes explaining why it's funny. So the real gift here, I guess, is that we get to listen to you explain a joke that, by the way, really doesn't need explaining. The problem isn't that it's abstract and cerebral. It's just that it's not funny. So let's just cut that out. Number two, here's another for the bad gift column. This is very broad, I know, but it's important. It's an important point. It's maybe the most important thing that I've said so far during this, really at any point this year. So listen very carefully to this. Do not buy the dad in your life any kind of object, tool, gadget, gizmo, thingamajig, instrument, apparatus that you haven't seen him use before. So here's what you have to understand about dads, okay? By the time we become dads, we will have already picked all of the types of things that we will ever want to use ever. We are not adding any more things. Now, here's the important part. That's not to say that we will have all of the things we will ever use. I said we've selected all of the types of things. So your job as the gift giver is to figure out what types of things your dad or husband uses and buy him something within that type. Okay, don't try to introduce him to a new type of thing. Let me show what I mean. For example, if you've never seen him wear a watch before, don't get him a watch. He's not a watch guy. A watch is a type of thing that didn't make the cut in his life. And now if he's 35 or 45 and it just didn't make the cut. He's not that guy. He's not ever going to wear one. If he likes coffee, but you've never seen him in your entire life use a French press, don't get him a French press. He's not a French press guy. He's not going to start to become one just because you buy him one. That's asking too much. That's a major lifestyle change. You can't expect him to make. This goes especially for any kind of electronic gadget. You know, if you've never seen him use a tablet, don't get him an iPad. It's a nice gift. It's an expensive gift. He thanks you for it, but he'll never use it. He appreciates the idea of it. He likes it in theory, maybe, but he won't use it. He just doesn't use that type of thing. If you've never seen him wear slippers, don't buy him slippers. He's not a slippers guy. I'm a slippers guy. Slippers for me, are a great gift, but only because that type of thing has made it onto my roster, you see. If you've never seen him use any kind of electronic back massager thing or whatever, again, don't buy him one. He doesn't use that type of thing. These are not bad gifts per se. They could be amazing gifts, but only if it's a type of thing that has already made it onto your dad or husband's menu of things that he uses. Don't try to add to the menu. Okay, it never works. Now, there is a wrinkle here that I have to mention. It's possible that a man, later in life as a father, may try to expand into a new type of thing. Okay, that can happen. But if that's the case, you'll know it because he'll announce it to you. He'll be excited about his journey into a new thing. The new thing probably won't take. He probably won't stick with it or remain interested in it for very long. But for a few months or weeks, he'll be very gung-ho about it. For instance, I used the example of a watch. Well, in fact, I am thinking about becoming a watch guy. Never worn one before. Randomly, I decided one day, maybe I'll do the whole watch thing. I told my wife. I was excited. I told her, because she was asking me what Christmas gifts. I said, yeah, you can give me a watch if you want. She said, watch? You're not a watch guy. And I said, I know, but we're going to try this out. I'm going on the watch journey. Who knows where it'll lead? Let's get crazy. Let's throw caution to the wind. Try this whole watch deal. See what the fuss is about. So she'll probably buy me a watch. I'll wear it once and never again in my life. That's how it goes when a man tries to expand. So it's sort of the exception that proves the rule. Finally, this is a note for wives specifically. Don't buy your husband a gift that's really a gift for you. We see what you're doing. We're on to you. We know what game you're playing. Ladies, I'll give you an example. My wife, usually an expert level gift giver, truly a master of the craft, she can still occasionally try to sneak one of these things past me. So recently, she gifted me something that is called, and I'm not making this up, a beard bib. So this is a large bib that you wear when you're trimming your beard, and it attaches by suction cups to the mirror in the bathroom. You wear it around your neck and it goes to the mirror, okay? And the idea is that it catches the beard trimming so that they don't clog up the sink. This is the gift my wife get. Why did she give me this generous gift? Well, because she is tired of the sink being clogged with beard trimmings. I, on the other hand, am not tired of it. I think it's fine. I think it's not a big deal. So this is a gift that she bought for herself. It's also something that I, in a million years, would never use. You could put a gun to my head and tell me to choose between a bloody death or the beard bib, and I would take death. And it would not be a hard decision. So the beard bib violated basically every rule I've just laid out. It's a type of thing I've certainly never used and would never use, and it's a gift for my wife, not for me. I'll let it slide because my wife bats like 900 with gifts, but still, it's the sort of thing you don't want to do. So, with all that said, what gift should you buy the dad in your life? Well, and I'll tell you, and this may sound like an unhelpful answer, but it is the answer, okay? And this is all you need. So you don't need there's a million articles online all the time. What do you buy the dad in your life? I'll tell you. Forget about you don't need any of the articles. I'm telling you right now. Just buy him something that he likes. That's it. Every dad has about 3, maybe 4 things that he likes. No dad likes more than 5 things. 5 is the top. No one likes 5 things at most. Some like fewer than 3. There are dads who only like 1 thing. But usually it's like 3 to 4. That's the average. So for example, I'll give you another example. My dad likes to eat at Ruby Tuesday. It's one of the 3 things he likes. Ruby Tuesday, it's not my thing. I don't quite understand his brand loyalty to Ruby Tuesday, but that's fine. My dad likes it. So over the years, I have probably given him a gift card to Ruby Tuesday for probably like 20 different gift-giving occasions. And so my wife, she'll every year she'll look at that. It's hard to figure out what to get your dad. And I say, what do you mean it's hard? He likes Ruby Tuesday. What's complicated about this? It's not hard. This is what he likes. Just get him that. See, when people say that their dad or husband is hard to shop for, which you hear a lot, what they mean is that it's hard to find them a gift other than the 3 kinds of gifts that he likes. And they feel like they need to switch it up, get creative, expand his horizons. No, we don't want our horizons expanded. We've set our horizons exactly where we want them, and they will stay there until we die. And that's it. Yeah. All that said, we don't care that much, so you really just get whatever you want. It's fine. I mean, in truth, if we want something, we'll just buy it for ourselves anyway, so the whole thing is sort of pointless. Even so, for the record, these are the gift-giving rules, and these are the dad gifts that are today canceled. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Godspeed.
Today on The Ben Shapiro Show, Bill Burr, Jimmy Kimmel, a University of Pennsylvania professor, and Joy Reid all smile at the murder of the United Healthcare CEO. AOC and Jamal Bowman lose their minds over Daniel Penny's acquittal, and Donald Trump prepares to unleash the forces of the market. That's today on The Ben Shapiro Show. Give it a listen.